perhaps we have all asked ourselves, is it permissible to lie for the sake of goodness? Is killing a murderer an act of justice? Or can helping a friend during the exam, despite breaking the rules, be considered of an act of solidarity? This question presents a moral complex dilemma. On the one hand, we wish to uphold the goodness. On the other hand, that goodness is often achieved through morally questionable action. To better understand this issue, we can turn to the ontological ethics of Immanuel Kant. Immanuel Kant was an 18th century German philosopher who developed the ontological ethical theory. The term deontological comes from the Greek word deon, meaning duty, and logos, meaning study or knowledge. This ethical framework asserts that an action is judged as morally right or wrong based on its adherence to moral duty rather than on its consequence or outcomes. For this reason, the ontological ethics is often positioned as a critique of other ethical systems, such as consequentialism and pragmatism. Kant lived during the Enlightenment, a period in which reason and rationality were regarded as the primary foundation of human knowledge. During this era, many moral theories evaluated action based on their consequence, whether they produce happiness, benefit, or success. Kant viewed this approach as problematic because it made morality dependent on the external condition and unpredictable outcomes. If morality were determined solely by consequences, the same action could be considered moral or immoral depending on the situation. For Kant, this would render morality relative and uncertain. Therefore, Kant sought to establish an ethical system that was objective, rational, and universal, one that applied to all human beings without exception. He believed that the foundation of morality should not be derived from the emotion, personal interest, or consequences, but from human reason itself. The core of Kant's ethics is the concept of moral duty. According to Kant, an action has a moral worth only if it's performed out of the duty, not from the self-interest, fear, or the expectation of reward. From this principle emerges the idea of goodwill, which Kant considered the only thing that is good without qualification. Goodwill refers to the intention of the act in accordance with moral law simply because it is morally right. To determine whether an action is morally permissible, Kant introduced the principle of the categorical imperative. This principle requires that one act only according to a maxim. Maxim is a personal principle of action that can be willed to become the universal law. In other words, one must ask whether the principle guiding one's action could be applied universally without contradiction. If it cannot, then the action is morally impermissible. Additionally, Kant emphasized that human beings must always be treated as ends in themselves, never merely as means. This principle rejects manipulation and deception, even when they are motivated by good intention, because such acts undermine human dignity. On the one hand, Kant's deontological ethics possesses several notable strengths. First, it offers a firm and consistent moral standard. Wrong action cannot be justified merely because they produce beneficial outcomes. Second, Kant's ethics strongly upholds human dignity by rejecting manipulation, deception, and exploitation. Honesty is not merely a moral option, but a form of respect for the rational autonomy of others. Third, this ethical system emphasizes serious moral responsibility, as actions are judged based on intention and adherence to duty rather than on fortunate or unfortunate outcomes. On the other hand, Kant ethics has also faced significant criticism. First, it is often regarded as overly rigid and insufficiently sensitive to complexity of real-life situations. Kant's absolute rejecting of lying, even in circumstances where a lie could save a life, appears to conflict with common moral intuition. Second, Kant ethics is criticized for neglecting the consequences of action, despite the fact that outcomes often play an important role in everyday moral judgment. Third, Kant's claim that moral universality is frequently questioned, since human rationality is shaped by different background, experience, and forms of education, leading to differing interpretation of moral duty. Returning to the initial question, is lying for the sake of goodness justifiable? According to Immanuel Kant's Deontological ethics, the answer is no. Lying remains morally wrong because it violates moral duty and cannot be universalized as a moral law. Nevertheless, the criticism of Kant suggests that moral life often confronts us with dilemma that cannot be reduced to simple distinction between right and wrong. Thus, while Kant's ethics provides a strong foundation for integrity and respect for human dignity, it also invites ongoing reflection on its limitation when applied to concrete human situations.